Nandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanatari Yamuna Tira Vanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanatari Yamuna Tira Vanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Paramahamsa Sri Bhradgacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhai Charanar Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Ki Founder Charya Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Rankaraj Bhagavatam Ki Jai Thai Gaura Ki all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatirandasya Gyanam Janashalakaya Chakshurandritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Sakanditam Sra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Saptakantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suchidevi Pranamani Hare Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Sindhubhyayavasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed, practically to nil, and loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Shvasayanam Maha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva, It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, to all successful of this world and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya,
Shri Krishna Chaitanya,
Prabhu Nityananda,
Prabhu Nityananda,
Shri Advaita Gadadhara,
Shri Advaita Gadadhara,
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta
Hare
Vrinda,
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Hare Hare,
Rama Rama,
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya,
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 Om Vasudevaya Namaha,
Om Surabhyai Namaha,
Om Vasudevaya Namaha,
Om Surabhyai Namaha,
Om Vasudevaya Namaha,
Om Surabhyai Namaha.
Mukam Karoti Vachalam Nagayate Yatripa Tamaham Vande Shri Vrindavanam Yatripa Tamaham Vande Shri Hare Krishna. We continue reading from the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, entitled The Lord in the Heart. Yesterday we read two texts, since one of them did not have a purport. So today we're reading text number 10. Probably will read a few verses that describe the Lord in the heart. So text number 10. Unidra
Nidra,
Rit
Rit,
Pankaja
Pankaja,
Karnikalaye
Karnikalaye,
Yogeshvaras Thapita
Yogeshwara Sthapita,
Pada
Pada,
Palavam
Pallavam,
Shri
Shri,
Lakshanam
Lakshanam,
Kaustubha
Kaustubha,
Ratna
Ratna,
Gandharam
Andharam,
Amlana
Anuvana,
Lakshmya
Lakshmya,
Vana
Vana,
Vana
Vana,
Malaya Chitam
Malaya Chitam,
Unidrarit Pankaja Karnikalaye
Unidra Hit Pankaja Karnikalaye,
Yogeshwara Stapita Pada Pallavam
Yogeshwara Sthapita Pada Pallavam,
Shri Lakshanam Kaustubha Ratna Kandaram
Shri Lakshanam Kaustubharatna Kandaram,
Amlana Lakshmyavana Malaya Sitam
Amlana Lakshyavanamayalaksam,
Unidrarit Pankaja Karnikalaye
Unidra Hrit Pankaja Karnikalaye,
Yogeshwara Stapita Pada Pallavam
Yogeshwara Sthapita Pada Pallavam,
Shri Lakshanam Kaustubha Ratna Kandaram
Shri Lakshanam Kaustubharatna Kandaram,
Amlana Lakshmyavana Malaya Sitam
Amlana Lakshyavanamalaksham,
Unidrarit Pankaja Karnikalaye
Unidra Hrit Pankaja Karnikalaye,
Yogeshwara Stapita Pada Pallavam
Yogeshwara Sthapita Pada Pallavam,
Shri Lakshanam Kaustubha Ratna Kandaram
Shri Lakshanam Kaustubharatna Kandaram,
Amlana Lakshmyavana Malaya Sitam
Amlana Lakshmyavanamala Chitam, Unidra Hrit Pankaja Karnikalaye, Unidra Hrit Pankaja Karnikalaye, Yogeshwara स्थापितपादपल्लवम् योगेश्वरस्थापितपादपल्लवम् श्रीलक्षणम् कौस्तुभरत्नकन्धरम् श्रीलक्षणम् कौस्तुभरत्नकन्धरम् वनमालयचितम् वनमालयचितम् उनिद्रहृत्पङ्कजकर्णिकालये योगेश्वरस्थापितपादपल्लवम् श्रीलक्षणम् कौस्तुभरत्नकन्धरम् अम्लानलक्ष्म्या वनमालयाचितम्
Oh, that's a squirrel? Squirrel, yeah. Okay, squirrel. Okay. Getting Bhagavatam classes.
My schedule is taken for some last few days.
Last few days, yes. We have one more new devotee. Unidra, blooming, Rit, heart, Pankaja, lotus flower, Karnika alaye, on the surface of the world, world, whirlpool. Yoga Ishvara, the great mystics, Astapita, placed, Padapalavam, lotus feet, Sri, the goddess of fortune, or a beautiful calf. Lakshanam, marked in that way. Kaustubha, the Kaustubha jewel. Ratna, other jewels. Kandaram, on the shoulder. Amlana, quite fresh. Lakshmya, beauty. Vanamalaya, by a flower garland. Achitam, spread over. Translation and purport by the Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. His lotus feet are placed over the whorls of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel engraved with a beautiful calf. And there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. Kindly repeat after me. His lotus feet are placed over the whorls of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel engraved with a beautiful calf. And there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. Report. The ornaments, flowers, clothing, and all the other decorations on the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead are identical with the body of the Lord. None of them are made of material ingredients. Otherwise, there would be no chance of their decorating the body of the Lord. As such, in the Paravyoma, spiritual varieties are also distinguished from the material variegatedness. Translation again, his lotus feet are placed over the worlds of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel engraved with a beautiful calf. And there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with with fresh flowers. So that Lord, known as the Paramatma, expansion of Krishna seated within the heart, um, is, as described here very nicely, decorated. Uh, that is why in our temples, where there are deities, especially in big temples, of course it can be done also in smaller temples, but usually in larger temples where they have more devotees, the pujaris, they spend a good amount of time. Of course, Prabhupada told Janani Vas Prabhu, not more than 1 hour. Uh, but a number of pujaris spend time very nicely decorating the form of the Lord. Uh, and here it mentions about fresh flowers. Prabhupada was always uh, very particular about this point. We should never offer plastic flowers. We should not decorate, as we see sometimes in some places, uh, plastic garland or plastic vases, plastic flower pots. Uh, those are not the standard and should not be used. So the Lord has very nice um, decorations on his body, uh, jewels, uh, the Kaustubha jewel, uh, and fresh flowers. And the purport, Prabhupada makes the point that uh, these different ornaments are identical with the body of the Lord, uh, because everything in the spiritual world, this is difficult initially for us to understand, but everything is animate or conscious or spiritual. And one can serve the Lord, and one does serve the Lord uh, in different ways by taking on, uh, just like Krishna's flute. Krishna's flute is also uh, spiritual. Everything connected with Krishna is spiritual. So the verse itself is very melodious. You know? The next verse continues actually the description of the Lord in the heart. So we'll read that as well. Vibhushitamamekkalayangudi yakaira
विभूषितं मे खलयाङ्गुलीकै
mahadhanaira kankanadibihi
महाधनैर्नूपुरकङ्कणादिभिः
Nidhamala kunchita nila kuntalaira
स्निग्धामलकुञ्चितनीलकुन्तलैः
Virochamana manaha sape shalam
विरोचमानानः सपेशलम्.
Translation and purport. He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist and rings studded with valuable jewels on his fingers. His leglets, his bangles, his oiled hair, curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. Report. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most beautiful person amongst all others. And Srila Shukadeva Goswami describes every part of the transcendental beauty one after another in order to teach the impersonalists that the personality of Godhead is not an imagination by the devotees for facility of worship, but is the Supreme Person in fact and figure. The impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth is but his radiation, as the sun rays are but radiations of the sun. Yes. Text number 12. Adina lila hasitakshano lasad
अदीनलीला हसिते क्षणोल्लसात्
Rubhanga samsuchita kuryanugraham
भुरुभङ्गा संसूचित भूर्यनुग्रहम्
Ikshita chinta Iksheta chintamayam enamishwaram
इक्षेत चिन्तामयमेनमीश्वरम्
Yavan manodharan Nayavatistate.
यावन्मनोधारणयावतिष्ठते.
Translation. The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benedictions. One must therefore concentrate on this transcendental form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation. Report. In Bhagavad Gita 12:5, it is said that the impersonalist undergoes a series of difficult programs on account of his impersonal meditation. But the devotee, due to the Lord's personal service, progresses very easily. Impersonal meditation is therefore a source of suffering for the impersonalist. Here the devotee has an advantage over the impersonalist philosopher. The impersonalist is doubtful about the personal feature of the Lord, and therefore he always tries to meditate upon something which is not objective. For this reason, there is an authentic statement regarding the positive concentration of the mind on the actual form of the Lord.
Actual,
Hmm?
yes, factual form of
On the factual form. Factual. Huh? What did I say?
actual. So I thought
Actual? Oh, yeah. On the factual form of the Lord. The factual form of the Lord is the actual form.
yeah.
The process of meditation recommended herein is bhakti yoga, or the process of devotional service after one is liberated from the material conditions. Jnana yoga is the process of liberation from the material conditions. After one is liberated from the conditions of material existence, that is, when one is nivritta, as previously stated herein, and when one is freed from all material necessities, one becomes qualified to discharge the process of bhakti yoga. Therefore, bhakti yoga includes jnana yoga, or in other words, the process of pure devotional service simultaneously serves the purpose of jnana yoga. Liberation from material conditions is automatically achieved by the gradual development of pure devotional service. These effects of bhakti yoga are called anartha nivriti. Things which are artificially acquired gradually disappear along with the progress of bhakti yoga. Meditation on the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, the first processional step, must show its effect by anartha nivriti. The grossest type of anartha which binds a conditioned soul in material existence is sex desire. And this sex desire gradually develops in the union of the male and female. When the male and female are united, the sex desire is further aggravated by the accumulation of buildings, children, friends, relatives, and wealth. When all these are acquired, the conditioned soul becomes overwhelmed by such entanglements. And the false sense of egoism or the sense of myself and mine become prominent. And the sex desire expands to various political, social, altruistic, philanthropic, and many other unwanted engagements, resembling the foam of the sea waves, which becomes prominent, very prominent at one time, and at the next moment vanishes as quickly as a cloud in the sky. The conditioned soul is encircled by such products as well as products of sex desire. And therefore, bhakti yoga leads to a gradual evaporation of the sex desire, which is summarized in three headings, namely profit, adoration, and distinction. All conditioned souls are mad after these different forms of sex desire, and one shall see for himself how much he has been freed from such material hankerings based primarily on the sex desire. As a person feels his hunger satisfied after eating each morsel of foodstuff, he must similarly be able to see the degree to which he has been freed from sex desire. The sex desire is diminished along with its various forms by the process of bhakti yoga, because bhakti yoga automatically, by the grace of the Lord, effectively results in knowledge and renunciation. Even if the devotee is not materially very well educated. Knowledge means knowing things as they are, and if by deliberation it is found that there are things which are at all unnecessary, naturally the person who has acquired knowledge leaves aside such unwanted things. When the conditioned soul finds by culture of knowledge that material necessities are unwanted things, he becomes detached from such unwanted things. This stage of knowledge is called vairagya, or detachment from unwanted things. We have previously discussed that the transcendentalist is required to be self sufficient and should not beg from the rich, blind persons to fulfill the bare necessities of life. Shukadeva Goswami has suggested some alternatives for the bare necessities of life, namely the problem of eating, sleeping, and shelter. But he has not suggested any alternative for sex satisfaction. One who has the sex desire still with him should not at all try to accept the renounced order of life. For one who has not attained to this stage, there is no question of a renounced order of life. So, by the gradual process of devotional service, under the guidance of a proper spiritual master and following the principles of the Bhagavatam, one must be able at least to control the gross sex desire before one accepts the renounced order of life actually. So Prabhupada is in a very elaborate paragraph, quite long paragraph, um, linking uh, bhakti yoga, or we could say underlying the fact that unless one cultivates bhakti yoga, one cannot factually come to the position of uh, vairagya and uh, jnana. There's one verse uh, in the Bhagavatam, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Dhanayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. Uh, Vairagya, knowledge, detachment rather, and Jnanam, knowledge, they are a byproduct of someone who actually practices Bhakti Yoga. Uh, in other words, the simplest, easiest way to actually become detached and to advance in knowledge is through this purifying process of Bhakti Yoga. That's mentioned here. How, of course, at the same time, Prabhupada mentions also that unless one is completely freed from material affinity, you cannot practice Bhakti Yoga. So there's different, yeah. Uh, we cannot practice pure Bhakti Yoga if we're still somehow connected or attached uh, to the modes of material nature. Uh, so the pure level of, or the level of pure bhakti uh, will only come at that higher stage.
Here, I had a question, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Bhakti is always pure. So, whatever we are practicing, if we are in the modes of material nature, it would be our superimposition of these modes upon bhakti, rather than not practicing. not saying that we are not practicing pure bhakti at all. Is this correct?
So what's the question?
No, because are we telling there is impure bhakti and pure bhakti, or are we telling we are impure and that superimposition is there on?
Bhakti, just like the spirit soul, is by nature pure, but becomes covered by the modes of material nature. Just like the sky, when there are no clouds, is pure. We can see the the beautiful blue sky. So the sky, even oh, right, the sky is always pure, even when it's like fully covered, isn't by clouds. Uh, so in the same way, living entity is always pure, but it's covered in bhakti. So, but uh, but we take up the different practices that that are practiced in pure bhakti. Uh, by that practice and by that association, uh, the purification will take place. Just like actually Prabhupada explains in the Nectar Devotion how deity worship is like the beginning uh, level by which we uh, begin to train our mind and our senses in serving, even though our consciousness is not uh, fully purified. So that that type of service is called mixed devotional service, or devotional service that is not pure consciousness, but uh, because of the conditioning of the living entity in the initial stage, that is called sadhana bhakti, isn't it? Sadhana bhakti. It is bhakti, but it is not pure bhakti.
Because in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, after he defines Uttama Bhakti, then after Rupa Goswami defines Uttama Bhakti, he says this Uttama Bhakti has three levels and Sadhana Bhakti is one of them. Sadhana, Bhava and Prema. So he says pure Bhakti is there in Sadhana Bhakti also.
He says that pure bhakti is there in sadhana.
Bhakti. Because he first defines, we have the Sanyabhilashita Shunyam,
Yeah.
and then this Bhakti, Tat he said, this Bhakti is divided further down to three as Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti and Prema.
Bhakti is always pure, but it will be practiced according to the uh, level of consciousness. Those in sadhana, those on the sadhana level, their consciousness is still
Yeah,
yeah.
that is correct.
So bhakti, yeah, like the living entity, is always living entity is also always pure, but is covered temporarily. Covered. Is the last portion to the privilege. So purification means getting free and gradually from sex desire. And of course, Papa makes the distinction between gross and subtle. Subtle being uh, profit, adoration, and distinction. Yeah. So purification means getting free gradually from sex desire, and this is attained by meditation on the person of the Lord, as described herein, beginning from the feet. One should not try to go upwards artificially without seeing for himself how much he has been released from the sex desire. The smiling face of the Lord is the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and there are many upstarts who at once try to begin with the 10th canto, and especially with the 5 chapters which delineate the Rasa Leela of the Lord. And this is certainly improper. And by such improper study of hearing the Bhagavatam, the material uh, opportunists have played havoc by indulgence in sex life in the name of Bhagavatam. This vilification of Bhagavatam is rendered by the acts of the so-called devotees. One should be free from all kinds of sex desire before he tries to make a show of recital of Bhagavatam. The Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur clearly defines the import of purification as cessation from sex indulgence. He says, Yatha yatha dhischa shudyati vishaya lam tyajati tatha tatha dharayat iti chitta shuddhi taratinaiva jnana taratamyam uktam. And as one gets free from the intoxication of sex indulgence by purification of intelligence, one should step forward for the next meditation, or in other words, the progress of meditation on the different limbs of the transcendental body of the Lord should be enhanced in proportion to the progress of purification of the heart. The the conclusion is that those who are still entrapped by sex indulgence should never progress to meditation above the feet of the Lord. And therefore, recital of the Srimad Bhagavatam by them should be restricted to the first and second canto of the great literature. Yes. One must complete the purificatory process by assimilating the contents of the first 9 cantos. Then one should be admitted into the realm of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada is very clearly in this last section of the purport explaining how one should, in the beginning, early stages, especially concentrate on the first and the second canto of the Bhagavatam, which are described as the Lord's lotus feet. And as long as one is not purified from sex desire or sex indulgence, Prabhupada mentions, then one should um, one should not prematurely go to the especially later portions of the Bhagavatam, in particular the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. In other words, we should be, it is recommended, one should study systematically the Vedic literatures, in particular the Srimad Bhagavatam, by going from one canto to the next gradually, like that. One should study the first 9 cantos, as Prabhupada is ending the purport here, uh, before prematurely going to the 10th canto. So in other words, there are certain literatures, this is the example of the Bhagavatam is given. There are other literatures that the Prabhupada also indicated we should quit reading, especially those that are very much describing the confidential or intimate pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, we will not be able to understand or appreciate those pastimes. There's actually a series of books uh, in Vrindavan that were I'm not sure exactly when this happened, around soon after, I believe, the Goswamis, because they wrote so extensively on especially the subject matter of bhakti, and because bhakti is, you know, uh, is a very very elaborate, very deep uh, subject matter. I mean, Krishna uh, confirms in the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, the very knowledge and even the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita is very confidential knowledge, isn't it? We have the ninth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, most confidential knowledge, and that confidential knowledge can only be or should only be revealed or shared with persons who are qualified. That's an important concept in the Vedic culture in the context of sharing knowledge, in the context of education. Education or knowledge should only be given to those who are qualified to receive, who can appreciate them and not misuse that knowledge. So, the point I wanted to make is that they call it Grantha Samadhi.
There are so many Grantha Samadhis. And they found one while digging Radha Govinda, they found one. 2,000 to 2,500 manuscripts.
2,000 manuscripts, huh? But Grantha Samadhi can mean two things, no? Either lost scriptures or intentionally put in
most
samadhi.
Of the time it is intentionally.
Yeah. Intentionally put in samadhi, because the majority of devotees will not be able to, what you speak of karmis, materialistic people. So therefore, our squirrel is having fun, huh? Anyways, they're getting added energy because of the prasadam that the devotees are doing. So that is why Prabhupada explains also how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be very cautious in discussing the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna openly. And it is only with rather two very confidential devotees, especially Sarup Damodar and Radha Ramananda, that he would that he would discuss these topics. So it is. These subject matters are there; they're bona fide, but one has to be qualified to actually hear them and speak about them. It's one of the 10 offenses that we recite every day. Not to speak. What is it? Ninth offense. To instruct the faithless person about the glory.
They have very nice. The Goswamis have written extensively on that.
On the subject matter
of that, because then we cannot preach at all if that is there. So Vishwanath Chakravarti writes that you should preach, develop faith in the holy name of Krishna. You don't preach about Krishna, you preach them to develop faith in the.
Faith. Yes. Prabhupada was very kind in giving the Krishna book. When the Krishna book, there's some interesting matters in relation to the Krishna book. The Krishna book, Prabhupada wanted that that the book be distributed actually widely, even though it's referring to various pastimes of Krishna. And he had already translated the Krishna book, but there was no money to print it. The whole story, how that Krishna book was printed. Actually, the money was donated by George Harrison.
Because
yeah,
it is put in such a way that it will not.
Yeah.
The Goswamis have 2-3 books. Like they'll not go very in depth in Nikunja pastime, but they'll cover Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava. The place they are designed in such a way so that people can develop greed, can develop lobha too.
Actually, when the Krishna book was printed, I forget how many, maybe a few thousand copies, possibly. The devotees were very, very ecstatic to receive the books, and in those days, the Sankirtan fever was very high. So Sankirtan fever means that actually everyone was into book distribution. That was the fever of the day. So when the books came, they opened the books, and they opened the boxes, and they all went out to distribute the books. And then they all came back to the temple, and there was no copy left. So they had distributed all the books without keeping a copy for themselves. Then they had to go back there. Can we have a copy of the book? Probably making a home somewhere.
I think so. Climbing up and coming here.
Oh, he's coming there. Yeah. Okay. Ishwara, yes. Any thoughts? No thoughts?
Yeah, jump.
You gotta be careful now. If he's alone, he can jump, but you got.
How is?
Everything house there?
I think so.
I guess. Huh? I've never seen a squirrel make a house.
Squirrels forget a lot.
Huh?
They forget a lot.
Squirrels, huh?
Yeah, they'll forget they have made a house. Many times, squirrels bury acorns under the ground. Nuts. Yeah. Whatever, and they'll completely forget that this there. And like this, many times when they dig, they'll find huge, like stockpiles of it.
In Canada, we have squirrel because the winter is very long, and so they,
chipmunks.
They you can see they gather these nuts and they bulge out of their mouth like this, and they store them somewhere for the winter. Big Yeah, chipmunks are quite big. Actually, in South India, I was telling somebody at Hibri, we have a kind of big squirrel, kind of like fly,
Oh yeah, yeah.
beautiful, then
No, they
huge.
like this. They glide and
Yeah,
forgot they have some.
yeah. I've only seen those. I don't know what they call, but some kind of squirrel, big squirrel, maha squirrel. Okay. Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Go.